everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and this is Overtime. Ethan Prolib unfortunately could not make it. I guess he was up late last night breaking the internet, from what I've heard. I think that's the third time in like 2 weeks that he's done that. We wish him luck. we're glad he's being successful. So we'll have him on. We're also going to do a after show hangout to discuss the events that we're going to be discussing today. So I'll be available in the after show hangout on our Discord shortly after the show. And we'll go from there. We have a couple of other updates planned. I think we are going to be entering, I think, a very difficult period. We've discussed some of this already. Sorry, one technical issue. We've got that under control. For those of you who don't know, I am phenomenally dyslexic. So I often use voice dictation. If I don't turn it off, my computer starts acting crazy when I talk, thinking that I'm issuing commands. So I've been having things open and close here while I'm talking to you, and it's not the ghost of Kanye West. It's my voice dictation. Apologies. So I know there's already a number of people in live chat. I will be getting to that. We'll be getting to what they have to say, and again, what we're going to be discussing after the show in a little bit. Since we started with Kanye West, might as well go there, I suppose. Mr. West, who has declared himself as the birthday party candidate for president, last seen polling at 2% nationwide, is now reported to be having some significant mental health issues. We'll be following that up with our breaking news story. CDC discovers water is wet. This announcement comes 3 days after a bizarre campaign rally in North Charleston, South Carolina, and an extended Forbes interview in which he repeatedly where he is described as being incoherent. Forbes described the conversation as, quote, rambling for hours of interview. He also has purportedly, as I understand it, fled an involuntary hold declared by his wife and mental health experts. He has fled to, last I heard it was Texas, and tweeted and dared his wife and doctors to come get him. We have footage here. We've showed this in the past. I'm going to show this once again. So this is of a protest in Portland, Oregon. This man here has his hands up and is actually asking a question of the police officers. Please watch what happens here. This man here has now been identified. His name is Christopher David. He is a Portland resident who served in the U.S. Navy for more than 8 years. The question he asked was it okay for them to violate their oath asked them if it was okay to violate their oath to defend the Constitution. That's when he was attacked, as you see here. There was some question as to whether or not this video was legit, but we have identified the man. He has given a number of interviews since this. This here has now gone out to several million people. He was taken by ambulance where it was discovered he had multiple fractures to his left hand. Ostensibly, he's going to be requiring surgery. Nobody knows quite what the status of that is, but hopefully he will do all right. Now, I believe it's the mayor of Portland. I believe that's the mayor. Actually, now I need to check on that. I apologize. Decided he wanted to participate in one of the protests. This is him at a protest in Portland.
I first learned this taste from the PPB. Yeah!
All right, that was Mayor Ted Wheeler of Portland, Oregon, as he and a number of peaceful protesters are gassed. One of them was struck in the face with a gas canister. He said, quote, "This is not a de-escalation strategy. This is flat-out warfare." Indeed, the protests had been getting quieter until the abduction of, or what was called abduction by the Attorney General and numerous officials in Oregon, of Oregonians off of the street by men wearing military camouflage with no identification and in unmarked vehicles. This, we now know, is apparently called Operation Legend. Legend being the name of a 4-year-old boy, Legend Taliaferro, who was murdered in his home in Kansas City. Named after him, this operation started just in Portland, Oregon. It was the supplying of military uniforms to law enforcement officials and having them go around, take people presumably with probable cause, but at this point nobody can confirm whether or not there was probable cause. There are no records. They are simply being detained, being Mirandized, and eventually being released, sometimes with or without seeing a judge. This is part of what now Trump is calling a, quote, surge of federal security forces that he is going to be sending across the country. At this point, Operation Legend has sent purportedly 200 federal agents to Kansas City, Missouri. A comparable number of agents are expected to go to Chicago. Mayor Wheeler called this, quote, an attack on our democracy, while Oregon Governor Katie Brown called it a blatant abuse of power. The Posse Comitatus Act is designed explicitly to prevent this kind of thing, however, is being circumvented by the use of immigration officials in military uniforms. Military uniforms obviously are designed to signify a member of the military. And these men are not military. They are law enforcement. Defense Secretary Mark Esper has come out and expressed concerns about military uniforms being worn by law enforcement agencies. And these are, we now know, genuine military uniforms. These aren't fakes. They're just taking military uniforms and putting them on non-military men. This prevents people, he said, from being able to identify between legitimate military and civilian law enforcement, especially in the absence of any other form of identification. U.S. Army General Mark Milley, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has also expressed concern about the use of legitimate military uniforms on civilian or even, I suppose, federal, at this point, law enforcement officials. This is, and let's see, that doesn't look pretty good there. I don't know, the dimensions on this may be wrong. That is a advertisement as part of a campaign by Donald Trump. It reads by Donald Trump. It's sponsored ad paid for by Donald Trump for president. Evangelicals for Trump are ready to help re-elect the president. Join in the movement today to ensure religious freedoms are kept as a top priority. It says on the left as I don't believe that's a swearing in. No, that can't be a swearing in. That's in front of the White House. I think Trump is, I don't know what he's doing there, but it says public safety versus chaos and violence. It shows protesters overwhelming authorities on the right. This is, so that's what you see now. This here is the original photograph that's being used on the right. Problem with that photograph: it didn't happen in the Portland, Oregon protests. Didn't happen this year. Didn't happen last year. Didn't happen even the year before. That photograph is from 8 years ago, before Trump was ever in office. Not only that, that photo is not in the United States. That is outside of Kiev. That is protesters who are seeking democracy, who are seeking freedom for the Ukraine from Russia, protesting and overwhelming tyrannical police forces that are oppressing them and denying them their rights. That's what that photo is. It's not U.S. citizens. It isn't demonstrators going against American forces. That is not a U.S. police officer on the ground. In fact, probably doesn't even speak English. That is the latest campaign poster for the Donald Trump for President campaign. The Chinese consulate in Houston has now been closed following an order to close it as a result of what is said to be a large case of espionage in a network spanning 25 U.S. cities by the Chinese against the United States. The Chinese government is causing this an unprecedented escalation in tensions. The consulate was given 72 hours to close, at which time they began burning consulate documents, ostensibly in anticipation of being seized. Such a seizure would still be in violation of the Geneva Conventions. However, upon closure of a similar protected building in Wuhan earlier this year, the American diplomats were seized and all of their, were detained, and all of their possessions, including secret consulate or secret diplomatic documents, were seized by the Chinese government. So at present, given the U.S. having significant disputes with China over intellectual property and ongoing trade war, human rights abuses in Hong Kong, and handling of the COVID pandemic, this is seen as a significant blow to an already rapidly souring relationship with the Chinese. China has retaliated by now closing the U.S. consulate in Chengdu. Meanwhile, domestically, in what is called the largest money laundering and racketeering scheme in Ohio history, the House Speaker Larry Householder of the State House of Representatives and 4 of his associates have been arrested for racketeering. All of that getting set. Well, you know what? Before I go on, let me just quickly check and see the live chat. Reminder for those of you, we are monetized. The fastest way for me to see any comments is for a super chat. We have a new interface here that has actually slowed that down. I apologize. We'll make sure that the super chats do get directly up onto this interface. A little behind on that, but fastest way, do try to read all your comments. And again, after the show, we will be having a discussion on all of these issues immediately after the show. I'll be there. We'll chat. We'll see what's going on. Yeah, it's a Ukrainian picture from 2014. That's, well, it's not the first. I don't even know where to begin. It's Fox News has been doing that, where they show protests and or riots and show the wrong year, sometimes the wrong country. Showed the wrong year for Trump's inauguration. It was a huge inauguration. It was actually Bush's inauguration that they were showing. This is Fox News, presumably a news network. You can only get that stuff wrong so many times before I think you have to call BS and say that they're not a legitimate news organization. Donald Trump has come out and said that he believes that people should be wearing masks. Says it is the patriotic thing to do, and he, as people's favorite president, if he's wearing a mask, you can wear a mask too. There is a new coronavirus mutation. This mutation now appears to be the dominant strain of the virus, which spreads significantly faster than the older strain. It is not more lethal, which is good news, but it does spread faster, which is actually extraordinarily bad news. And the reason is because, while you may think, hey, if it's not more lethal, what's the problem? The problem is, and we are about to discuss this, hospitals are getting overwhelmed. It's spreading too fast as it is. The speed at which it's spreading, just the normal virus, is a huge problem, and hospitals can't treat the sick because there's too many of them. So anything that spreads faster is going to be a problem. This mutation, known as D614G, is forming clusters in the UK significantly faster than the original virus. So we will discuss that. Right now, multiple counties in and around Texas are becoming overwhelmed. Dr. Jose Vasquez, the Starr County Health Authority, has said that, quote, the situation is desperate and that there is nowhere to put these patients. Doctors are being described trying to resuscitate dying patients in the hallways, and the sickest patients, the ones most likely to die, are being told to go home. This is an effort to save precious and dwindling resources for patients that most have the chance to, if given proper medical care fast enough, best chance of possibly surviving. Vasquez has now established a set of triage rules denying medical service to the sickest patients, saying that they should go home where their loved ones can care for them and give them best possible hospice care. Texas now has over 331,000 cases and more than 4,700 deaths. Quote, there is nowhere to put these patients, Dr. Velasquez says. The whole state of Texas and neighboring states have no ICU beds to spare for us. All right. Sorry, I got distracted. I got a DM there. So let's see. Dr. Vasquez called this a mass casualty situation and has said that the Starr County Memorial Hospital could no longer function without drastic changes to its triage protocol. He appeared to blame Texas Governor Greg Abbott for the situation, suggesting that it was an alarming and exponential increase that came after the state was opened too early. He also argues that it was a failure to maintain proper social distancing, especially during the 4th of July celebrations, a wave of which we are seeing now as a direct result of that, now being roughly 2 weeks after those celebrations. The Starr County Judge Elroy Vera has said that continuing to have weddings, Sweet 16 parties, quinceañeras, and graduations have also contributed significantly to the upticks in deaths, and said that As a result of a failure to maintain social distancing or take this seriously, the very communities that were engaging in these celebrations are now having to make end-of-life decisions for their families and loved ones. They now appear to be approaching the same state of triage that Italy was in not long ago. On March 10th, they began as a nation considering triage procedures. Morgues in the U.S. are now full, morgues in Texas are now full. Bodies are being stored in coolers and will soon probably be transported to mass graves, just like in Italy, where there were military trucks loaded with bodies, taking them all to a mass grave that was so large it could be seen from outer space. Because there is a 2-week lag between anything we do to try to stop the effects of the virus and how long it takes, this situation will worsen, and it will worsen drastically and at the exponential rate that we have been seeing thus far. If Texas is to have any hope of getting this under control, they should have taken drastic measures 2 weeks ago. It's too late for that. If they wish to reverse their current course towards a catastrophic overwhelming of the entire medical system, they need to immediately shelter in place and lock the entire state down. There's no gray area here. That's what has to be done. At least 40 hospitals in Florida are now at 90% of their ICU capacity. 55 hospitals have exceeded 100% of their ICU capacity. When you ask what happens if you exceed the capacity, what that means is they are, at one point, New York was experimenting with hooking up 2 people to the same ventilator. 2 people to 1 ventilator. No one's ever even considered trying that before. That's all they could do. That's what happens when you exceed 100%. Don't have enough beds. The people who are there are now getting less than the best care they possibly could. The Agency for Healthcare Administration reports that Florida now has only 16% of its ICU capacity free. 16%. And again, it's still rising. Meanwhile, medical experts are now saying that the U.S., if they're going to avert a nationwide catastrophe, must immediately shut down, lock down the entire country, and start the lockdown process over again from scratch. This is if they are to get have any chance of gaining an upper hand in this pandemic. In a letter sent to Trump Thursday, over 150 prominent medical experts, scientists, teachers, and nurses urged the United States government to shut down immediately and start the lockdown over again. Quote, right now we are on a path to lose more than 200,000 American lives by November 1st, yet many states still allow people to drink in bars, get a haircut, eat inside a restaurant, get a tattoo, get a massage, and do a myriad of other normal, pleasant, but non-essential activities. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has said today that COVID-19 will end up being one of the top 10 leading causes of death for Americans this year. In Mexico, they've announced 7,573 new COVID cases yesterday. In addition, back to the United States. That keep the New Mexico numbers with other countries. 23 lifeguards from Long Beach, New Jersey have now tested positive. The state of Mississippi has over 16,000 new cases, and the governor has said, quote, that number is simply not sustainable. It pushes us towards almost 6,000 new cases in the last 4 days alone. 9 Mississippi hospitals have now exceeded their ICU capacity, and patients are being flown to Georgia, which experts say will soon be having a capacity crisis as well. The governor of Mississippi has issued an executive order limiting social gatherings to no more than 10 people indoors, including private parties, and no more than 20 people in outdoors. D.C. and Massachusetts have announced 14-day quarantines on anyone coming from a COVID hotspot anywhere in the world or inside the United States. Did I misspeak on one of those? Well, I can go back to that. I'll check that out in a sec. I apologize if I misspoke or if I missed. Yes, we'll. Long Beach, New Jersey. Oh God, yeah, Long Beach. Yeah. Oh dear Lord. Okay. Because of the situation in New Jersey. And I don't mean the virus. I mean just nobody likes anybody from New Jersey. We are banning New Jersey people from we have a Mr. Michael whoever. New Jersey, get rid of them. No more. That's it. Executive order. We don't want New Jersey contaminating our live chat. Moody too. Moody, whoever that is. Banhammer coming down hard. DC and Massachusetts have issued 14-day quarantines on anyone coming from a COVID hotspot inside the United States or out. And Vermont now has a mandate for masks as well. California has said it will only allow students to attend elementary school so long as they have a parental waiver. You're going to need a waiver to go to school. Not to stay home, to go to school. The NCAA is considering whether or not it will have the fall championships, even as a number of Major League Baseball players are now testing positive for COVID. A Kansas City Chiefs football player has said he will not participate in the season if it is held. Football is saying they will hold the season, and not only will football continue with their normal season, but they will not be issuing any restrictions to stadiums anywhere in the country outside of any local restrictions that the governors may choose to place. The World Health Organization has recorded a record number of new cases. Hawaii has also set a record for infections for a second day in a row now. Texas is reporting their highest number of new cases. Oregon is recording its highest record number of COVID deaths, as has California, all in the last 24 hours. 84 New York bars and restaurants have been found to be in violation of the state's COVID-19 social distancing rules, and multiple bars and restaurants in Texas and Florida, it has been discovered, have now also been flouting the regulations. Governor of Florida suggested that it was expected that a letter sent to all all businesses that have a liquor license saying that their liquor license would be pulled if they did not follow these steps. That letter should have been sufficient, in the past has been sufficient, but has been largely ignored by businesses in the state in favor of having more people on premises in closer distances so that these businesses can earn more money. Florida has seen hospitalizations go up 83.5% over the last 2 weeks because of how Florida tallies these figures, which includes, now the majority of these cases are said to be COVID, but actually it's believed that it's probably a significant amount higher because Florida only counts it as a COVID-related hospitalization if COVID is the principal reason that they come into the hospital. So if, for example, they come in for something other than suspected COVID, and it's later discovered that they are positive for COVID, that doesn't count as a COVID case in the hospitals in Florida at present. I think that probably is impeding people's ability to get accurate numbers on COVID there. Also, we are learning more about the long-term effects of COVID, including stroke, lethargy, cognitive impairment, kidney damage, necrosis, and other serious issues, which in some cases are permanent. In a survey of people diagnosed with COVID, the CDC now says that they have found that even in younger patients, in the best case scenario for the youngest group, between 26 and 32% of people continue to have symptoms, significant symptoms, even 3 weeks after, quote, recovery. The U.S. now admits that a COVID-19 vaccine will likely not be widely available until early in, and let's correct that. Anthony Fauci has said repeatedly that he does expect that a vaccine would be available early next year. I'm not sure where we got this, that the U.S. is. I'm going to correct that. That was in our rundown, as the U.S. is now admitting that it's not. The U.S. has always said that it wouldn't be available until. So I'm going to in line and make a correction. The U.S. reaffirms its long-standing position that there will not be a vaccine widely available until the early months of 2010. Coronavirus deaths now surpass 145,000 in the United States, as the death rate is flirting with about 1,000 deaths every day in the United States. Former U.S. Food and Drug Administration official Scott Gottlieb has said that the U.S. can expect over 300,000 deaths by the end of the year if it does not change direction. Donald Trump does appear to have changed course on a number of issues regarding coronavirus. He has canceled the Republican National Convention in Jacksonville, Florida. You may remember that the convention was originally supposed to be held in Charlottesville, North Carolina. North Carolina said they would not hold such a large convention. They would hold it, but only if it could meet with the strict social distancing guidelines they had, which there was no way it was going to meet with. Trump attacked the governor of North Carolina, said that he had lied. He had suggested that he would change the rules when in fact he didn't. It got reasonably contentious, as things tend to do when you don't play ball the way Trump wants you to, regardless of whether or not the lives of your constituents are at stake. He said he would only hold it in a state that would be willing to host it. Texas and Florida have agreed and he said, okay, these are great states, these are patriotic states, and now even he is admitting that there is no feasible way to hold the Republican National Convention. He's also begun wearing a mask and has said, quote, things will get worse before they get better. Okay. Improvement. The general consensus is he's doing this only because he is losing dramatically in the polls, and he had no other reason. And indeed, this is an awfully quick turnaround. Nothing's really changed. The numbers are continuing to climb, but nothing's changed other than his poll numbers sinking since when he wasn't wearing the mask to today, now that he's everybody's favorite president, at least according to him, and everyone should be a patriot and wear the mask. Nonetheless, he has said that he does still insist that regardless of where the numbers are, the schools should all reopen in the fall. Now, let's see. He has suggested, you'll have to give me a second here. He continues to block the head of the CDC from testifying about their recommendations regarding school openings. He has also said that, apologies here. He believes now, while he is against denying funds to schools that don't reopen, he believes there should be more funds and that those funds should only go to schools that reopen, which is 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Super chat, $5 from Michael Spruce. I don't know. I've never heard of this guy before in my life. We need levity from time to time. I'll be glad to be banned to make someone chuckle. We do, and the gallows humor, and especially going over these numbers, I'm glad I get to make fun of somebody. And the fact that they're from Jersey really is the cherry on the sundae for that one. But thank you very much for your super chat, and I agree. I think it's good to be able to try to take a break from a very long series of very depressing numbers. So he is finally acknowledging that in some hotspots there might be a delay in reopening, and has asked for $105 billion in the next stimulus package for schools to reopen. Betsy DeVos has come out and said that, quote, that children are, quote, stoppers for the disease. I can't write a joke that funny. I just can't. Secretary of Education says that children are, quote, stoppers for the disease. So you have a thing of coronavirus, and you put a child in it, and they're a stopper for the disease. I don't even. Thanks, Betsy. Thank you. I'm sure our educational system is in good hands. They are stoppers for the disease who don't get it or transmit it themselves, according to Betsy DeVos. This is wholly and 100% false, and it is false to the point where now you have to call her a liar. You don't have a choice but to call her a liar because she is in a cabinet-level position in what is ostensibly the most powerful and most intelligent, educated, or whatever you want, whatever Trump is going to say. She is at a cabinet level position. If she doesn't know the truth, she's lying. She's lying. And she's deliberately lying. And I know this because she can't be so fucking stupid so as to not be able to read the data coming in from every single medical institution on the planet. This isn't hyperbole. So she's lying. Deliberately. Not only should she be fired, she should probably go to jail because people are going to listen to her and it's negligent homicide. People are going to die because they're listening to her. And this is the entire problem with the administration's handling of this so far, which is people who are respected and in positions of power who don't know what's going on. This isn't a guess. We know for a fact how many kids are getting infected and at what rate. And while it is true that children under the age of 9 appear to be more resistant to this than any other demographic, they still get it, they still die from it. In some cases, they die instantly from it, and nobody knows why. They get it, they're fine, they're dead. That's it. Nobody knows why. And since that's a demographic that as the head of education in this country, she maybe should be a little concerned with, I don't think she should be saying things that aren't true when it comes to that. And again, there's no excuse for her to not be educated on it. So I'm going to call lie and leave it at that. We are months into this pandemic, and major members of Trump's own cabinet doesn't even understand the most basic fundamentals of this disease. Some of them don't realize that there's a 2-week lagging indicator on infections, and then another 2 weeks on that over death. Trump doesn't get it. So she doesn't understand even the most basic COVID data. Not most, but a number of his cabinet doesn't, and are repeating claims which we now know to be completely false and genuinely dangerous to men, women, and children if they are believed. So in general, it is true that 9-year-olds do tend to get it less frequently by some, and seem to also they seem to get it a little less often and receive less consequences. They also can transmit it. So if a 9-year-old gets it at school, brings it home, it infects their grandparents, the odds are very poor for survival for the grandparents at this point, given the numbers. Trump has every intention at this point of opening all grades, regardless of age, against the medical advice of local and national experts. So whether or not 9-year-olds can transmit it doesn't really answer the question either, because you still have high school students who, according to DeVos, should be going to school in the middle of this. There are other considerations, and I think this is legit and worth pointing out. There is assistance given by schools to disadvantaged families, including free lunches. There are parents who can't afford to stay at home with their kids in the fall because they have to go to work or they're going to lose their jobs. What we are looking at now, as far as In Time can tell, and we are starting to the best of our ability, dive into the numbers and see what we're looking at. But what we're looking at now ostensibly is that the last 2 stimulus packages went to them in a way that's almost direct cash injections to people is rarely a good idea for any number of reasons that we can discuss. We'll bring on an expert and discuss it. It's a very, but here's the thing. Why is the stock market so high? Why is the stock market so high? Because they're some of the largest beneficiaries of the last injections. Why are the injections going to them? I'll admit, this whole argument over are corporations people? Well, corporations certainly affect people. So if a big, huge corporation, if what is it? Immelt is the CEO of GE. If GE goes under, That affects a lot of people. That affects a lot of working class people, American. Okay, I understand that. But the company itself isn't those people. And keeping stock prices high is a huge indicator of whether or not an incumbent president will win re-election, but doesn't help the people who are suffering most in this country right now. He wants to keep the numbers high because so long as they stay high, he has the best chance of a high approval rating, short of lots of people dying of coronavirus, which seems to be happening regardless. But those numbers can't stay high because the U.S. can't keep these injections going into those corporations to keep those numbers artificially inflated. So at some point, I personally, we're talking to experts and we're going to try to get some projections. I personally think that between 2 to 4 weeks from now, you're going to start to see a significant crash in the stock market. There isn't an economist on the planet who's going to say that with the U.S. facing more lockdowns, schools not really being able to reopen even under the most optimistic projections, hospitals in multiple states reaching and exceeding capacity. I guarantee you we're not even close to the worst of it yet. We're not, and even Trump for the first time admits it. And the stock market's still going up. That's not possible. It's being artificially inflated. And if you want to know how and where that kind of money is coming from, it's real simple. It's these I was going to say bailouts. It's not bailouts. It's what they're calling it is stimulus packages, and they're trying to do one more. The government doesn't have that kind of money. Now, what they could have done, what they should have done, except for it's the dreaded S word, is guarantee salaries, minimum salaries for people that the government's going to pay, even if, or even just a basic UBI. Because here's what happens: that money gets paid to people who then pay their mortgages, who then pay their rent. That money they then get to tax as income from those businesses, from the mortgage companies. It gets back into the government. Not 100%. A lot of it stays out there, but at least some of it's getting back. They get the money back, and you keep the economy going for a much longer period of time. It's not permanently sustainable. And that's the objection that people say, well, you can't. But it's sustainable for 10 times longer than what we're doing, which is just giving everybody $1,000, saying here, that doesn't cover rent for most people for anything more than a month, maybe a month and a half if you're lucky. And what are the businesses doing with it? They're not even paying their employees. How do I know that? Because a lot of them can't bring their employees in anymore. Yes, the businesses are suffering, and I'm sorry, but we have to start making tough decisions, and the businesses need the employees actually more than the employees need the businesses. Not by much, but keep the people afloat. A lot of businesses will go under, but if you keep the people afloat, you can keep the most number of businesses and people afloat overall. We haven't done that. The opportunity is lost. We can't go back on that because the money's already gone out the door, and the U.S. isn't made out of money. We can print some more, so we're almost made out of money, but that's going to cause inflation, which is going to be a big enough problem as it is. So what I think we're looking at is a large number of, especially starting in August, we're probably going to see a large number of defaults. A lot of states will have their prohibition on evictions ending. So you're going to see people sick, people homeless. You're going to see an increase in the number of hospitalizations, more hospitals getting overwhelmed, and states being unable to. We are going to be reduced. At this point, it looks to me very difficult for the U.S. to avoid where Italy was around March, and that was a frightening, and they told us how to avoid it. We knew how to avoid it. America, we can do whatever we like, and we're not going to suffer the consequences. So I think that's where we are now. I'm sorry to, I think this is a news show, so we're going to be bringing bad news today, and I think we're going to be bringing bad news coming in the near future. We are keeping an eye on Oregon. There is a massive protest happening there right now, which appears to have created a standoff between protesters and forces. I'm not even sure who the forces are right now. Nobody knows. Like I said before, we've got at least 200 forces. I think some have now been deployed to Chicago, but groups of as many as 200 being deployed across the country. And Trump has said into as much as 40 cities across the U.S. for Operation Legend. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on the COVID numbers and what's happening. So we do have a couple of interesting shows coming up, and actually I haven't had a chance to look at the calendar. I do apologize. I'll discuss those. Anyone who wants to come join us, I'll be in the Discord. And we have a super chat, $1 super chat from Nate the lawyer, big supporter of the show. We really appreciate his help and support. So Nate, thank you very much for your super chat. And I was going to make a joke about the. Okay, never mind. I was going to make a dollar joke, but my jokes, frankly, aren't really worth a dollar anyway. So Nick, everyone hates. No, Nick hates everything Jersey. Your thought. Mr. Westby, you weren't supposed. You were supposed to be. We have a quarantine. There is a 14-day quarantine on In Time from anybody from New Jersey. So we'll be obviously snuck in somehow. We'll take care of that. Mouty's out too. Sorry. All right. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll keep you updated. And come on to our Discord. You'll see what our plans are and what's going on. Thank you guys all very much, and we look forward to catching up with you soon.